In this video, I'm going to show you how to convert a Gatsby project into TypeScript. In the Gatsby, there are two types of files. There are Gatsby API files, which are Gatsby config and Gatsby node. And there are also React components that are used to render the elements on the pages and the pages themselves. As part of this tutorial, we're going to go over this pandas project, which is taken from the tutorial on gatsbyjs.org. And this is basically a simple blog that has multiple blog posts and that has a homepage and the about page. So if we go to the about page, it's just a page with a different piece of content. And if we go to one of our blog detail pages, here we have title, the description, and it's all written in JavaScript right now, and we're gonna see how we can convert it to TypeScript. And let's finally take a look at the code. The project is available in JavaScript and TypeScript, and I have put the link into the description of this video. And as you can see, it's just a simple Gatsby website which has components, pages, templates, and utils. If you go to the pages, we have the React components pages, and we also have the markdowns. And those markdowns are used by the Gatsby source file system and Gatsby transformer remark in order to make detailed pages out of them. If we go to the Gatsby node, we are gonna have a standard setup here. So we are creating a page out of each markdown file, and we are giving each markdown node a field slug, which is gonna be used to construct the URL of the detail page. Now, on the official Gatsby site, Gatsby claims that they support TypeScript out of the box, and it kind of works here. So if you just create a file with a TSX extension, you're gonna be able to see it in your website. So it actually works. But if we make a type error, it's actually gonna work without the problems, and Gatsby CLI will still allow you to compile and build this project without any issues, which in my opinion is incorrect, because if we have a type error in our code, then there's probably something that we didn't intend to do, and that bug can actually slip into the production. So we'll need to set up a proper type checking for these files in order to type check it during our development and also on the CI/CD stage, which we're not gonna cover in this video. So if we make an error, alright, and if we try to, for example, create another instance, and we're gonna give it something like New York, we can see that my code editor is actually highlighting this error, but the Gatsby CLI is working fine. And we can actually go to our Gatsby project, and we can see in the console that we're still getting that value. So this code is getting compiled and it's gonna be built, which is incorrect. Next, we're gonna see how we can fix it. So for that, we'll first need to install TypeScript in our project as a dev dependency. And now that the TypeScript is installed, we'll need to generate a tsconfig for this project. So let's actually do that. And the TypeScript is not installed globally on my npm, so I'll need to use this bin folder, which has the tsc executable. Now that we have created our tsconfig, Let's actually change it a little bit. So we are gonna use JSX here, and we don't want to emit our files because we just want to type check them, but we don't actually want to emit our compiled JavaScript files. So let's find that command. Yeah, it's here, and I just want to add another property here, which is called pretty, and this property allows us to see the prettified and colorful error messages in our CLI whenever a type error happens. And finally, we'll need to specify the directory in which to look for those files, and we'll also exclude some of the folders, which are the node modules, cache, and public. Include, source, exclude, node modules, public, and cache. Alright, so now that we have this tsconfig, we need to use it. And the way we're gonna use it is we're gonna run a parallel script along with Gatsby develop, which will type check all of our files. And in order to run it in parallel, we're gonna install a package called npm run all, which will allow us to run those two scripts in parallel. Let's see how it will be. And now that our package is installed, let's actually change our scripts in order to run those commands in parallel. So we're gonna name this develop Gatsby, and we're gonna create another one which is gonna called type check, which is gonna be called type check, and it's gonna be a type compiler in the watch mode, and we're gonna run these two commands in parallel by running npm run develop, and it's gonna use npm run all in order to run in parallel those two scripts, develop Gatsby and develop type check. Alright, so let's actually run our project again, and let's see if we get type errors. Yeah, so as we can see that Gatsby is still working fine, but at least we get this type error here, so we know that something is wrong. So if we come here and if we try to save this file, again we're gonna get that error, and it's not gonna go away until we're gonna fix it. So let's fix it actually, and now we're not getting any errors, and everything is working fine. So we can use this tsc command in our CI/CD pipeline that will allow us to type check this project. So now that we know that our errors are going to be registered somewhere, let's go ahead and convert all of our JavaScript files into TypeScript. And the way we're going to do it is like with any other React TypeScript project. We're going to use React functional component, and it accepts type property, which is the type of probes to this component. Since this component resides under the pages directory, it's being used by Gatsby, and Gatsby actually injects some props into it. And luckily, Gatsby has implemented all of those typings for us. And in this case, the type is called page props. And if we see, actually our Gatsby already has it, and this way it actually has inside of it a location, path context, which is the page context, all those probes that we expect into our page React components. So we're not going to use any of them here. Let's actually go and quickly convert all of the rest JavaScript files. Okay, page props, and we're gonna need to import it here. And it's complaining about these two packages because we're gonna also need to convert them. So whenever we have a page query, we are receiving that data through our props, and the second argument to here is the structure of that data. So if we go here, we're gonna see that it's all marked down remark, then it has a property total count, which is probably a number, and then it has edges, node, and then it has our markdown remark entity there, which has ID, front matter, excerpt, etc. So I'm just gonna copy this, and I'm just gonna create a new folder called entities, and inside of it is gonna have a type markdown remark. And here we're gonna export the type called markdown remark, and that type is gonna have these properties. And here we have string, here we have a front matter. That front matter has a title which is string, and we also have a date which is also a string. We have an excerpt which is also string, fields, slug, string. So now that we have this markdown remark, we can reuse it in different files. So we need to use it here as a type in our GraphQL data result. So as we can see, it has all markdown remark, and underneath it has a total count, which is a number, and then we have edges, node, and as we know that edges is an array of nodes, so we're gonna add array here. Here we're gonna have our node, but our node is our markdown remark, so we're just gonna use markdown remark type here that we had created, and we're gonna put it as a second argument to our file. And again, I made a mistake because that type is actually a type argument to our page props. So now that we have it like that, we have the structure of our data, which is the GraphQL result. And as you can see, there are no type errors, and we have all of our fields typed. Let's go to this utils and component layout, and let's convert them as well. So TSX, I'm gonna write React FC, and it doesn't have any other properties rather than children, so we don't need to have a property interface here. But as we can see, it's always complaining about this typography. So let's go there and let's also try to convert it. Alright, I guess we don't have types for these two third-party libraries, and we're gonna need to install them. And because I've already tried this project, I know that this library doesn't have any type definitions, so we're just gonna mock them. We need to create a declarations file in our source directory, and that declarations file will mock this library. So we're gonna say declare module like that, and we don't have any type error here anymore. We have two more files to convert. This is pretty easy because we don't have any properties here, so it works like that. And the last file is our template, and here we have a data, so we need to type it out as well. And because this is our template, it also can have a page props. So we have imported it here, and then we're gonna give it another type argument, which is GraphQL result. And that GraphQL result is gonna have a structure from the page query. So we can see that it has a markdown remark, and inside of it has HTML and front matter. So we're just going to create this GraphQL result type. It's going to have markdown remark, and inside of it is going to have HTML, which is probably a string, and front matter. Which has a title as a string. Alright, so now we have converted all of our React components into TypeScript. Now let's actually check if it still works. And I don't expect it to work because our Gatsby can no longer find this template, which is the blog post. And if we go to our Gatsby node, we are gonna need to modify this path to the TSX. Let's try to rebuild it. Alright, so it looks like it had no problems. I'm just gonna go to this directory, and we can see that everything works without the problems, which is great. Now comes the second part of this video, and that part is how do we actually convert our Gatsby node and Gatsby config to the TypeScript. This is a very valid question because our Gatsby node and Gatsby config can have lots of code as our project develops, and it's in our interest to also type check it. But we have a problem here. These files are being run by the Gatsby runner, and they are not going through the Webpack. If we just change it, and if we hope that it will work, and if we just rerun our project, we can see that we get this huge error, and that error basically says that it's trying to find this Gatsby config.js, but it's not able to find it. Maybe we made a mistake in our name, and that happens because Gatsby runner doesn't expect the TypeScript extension, it expects the JavaScript. So we can't leave it like that. We need to have a Gatsby config.js file. So let's create it. And we have this Gatsby config file, but eventually we want all of our code to reside in the TypeScript file. So what we are gonna do here is we are gonna reference our Gatsby config TypeScript from here. We're gonna create a special directory under our source directory, and we're gonna host these two files, Gatsby config and Gatsby node, in that directory. And we're gonna call it Gatsby, and let's actually put those two files over here. And let's rename them. Since the directory name is already Gatsby, let's just rename them to config and node. And now that we have them here, Gatsby is still gonna look for these files in the root of the project. So we'll need to come to our Gatsby config, and we'll need to modify it such that whenever Gatsby comes to this file, it can run the subsequent imports in TypeScript. And the way we're gonna do it is we're gonna use the package called tsnode, which allows us to recognize the TypeScript syntax called from the JavaScript files. So our Gatsby runner is written in JavaScript and it's calling this Gatsby config.js, but here we're gonna need to do something that will recognize the TypeScript syntax. So we'll need to install that package. npm install ts node. And when this package is going to be installed, we're going to require it in this Gatsby config, and we're going to register this module such that the Gatsby runner recognizes the TypeScript files down the stream. So we're going to import our Gatsby config here. Source Gatsby config. And now whatever happens down the stream when this program is executing can be written in TypeScript. Let's go to our Gatsby config and let's convert it to TypeScript. So TypeScript uses another import syntax, which is the ES6 imports, and we're gonna use it like that. Here, export default. So now our Gatsby config is fully converted to the TypeScript. The next thing we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to reference this node file from the Gatsby node in the root directory. So let's go there and let's try to create Gatsby node. And this time around it can be a TypeScript file just because we have already registered our TS node here. So the way Gatsby runner is gonna behave is gonna come to this file first. It's gonna register the TS node, which can now understand our TS syntax, and down the line there's gonna be a Gatsby node which is already in TypeScript, and it's gonna be recognized by the Gatsby runner. So what we want to do here is we want to reference that Gatsby node file which resides under the source directory. We're gonna export everything from source Gatsby node, just like that. And now it doesn't recognize that module because we'll actually need to convert it to the proper ES6 module. Export const create pages and export const on create node. Great, but let's run npm run develop in order to have some visibility of the current status. We're getting notified about these errors that happen in the Gatsby node in the CLI, which is what we want. We want a full type check coverage. So now we can be sure that once we properly type this file, we're gonna have full type coverage in our project and we are gonna be done. Another great news here is that we don't need to type out these APIs ourselves. Actually, Gatsby has already typed them out. The type is called Gatsby node, and if we're just gonna import it here, we can actually go and explore which methods it has. So it has the create pages method already, and it has all the type definitions for other Gatsby API methods. So here we have on create node, and the way we can use it is if we go to our Gatsby node, we can reference those types just by their key names. So this one is on create node, and I have misspelled it, and right now as you can see our error went away and we have achieved the type coverage here. So if we go here, we can see the node has this type, and we can see that the type is string, etc. So we can actually do the same for the create pages API. Okay, great, but we still have some errors in this file. The GraphQL result data has an unknown type, so let's type it out. type GraphQL result, and it has all markdown remark, and inside of it it has edges like we had in one of our React components. And inside of our edges we have a node, and that node has only one field, which is called fields. So let's just do it like that. And let's apply it to our GraphQL query. And in this case, the GraphQL method expects the first type argument to be the data type. So now that we have typed our result, we can see that it has the data as the GraphQL result. And we have this error which says that the object is possibly undefined, which is great because now we can work on that error. If result data is missing, we're just gonna throw new error here. Failed getting posts. Great. Now let's try to run our project again and let's see if we get any errors and if our project works. Sorry, develop. Okay, so we have no errors yet. And our project seems to be working and everything is fine. So here's how we can use Gatsby with TypeScript. And if you like this video, press the like button and consider subscribing, because I'm gonna be making more of these Gatsby advanced videos in the future. And if you have any specific question about Gatsby with TypeScript or any other question about Gatsby, please leave a comment under this video, and I'll see you in the next one.